First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Good afternoon, folks, as Tim takes his last sip of coffee
I did not know
get ready to go.
Wow, here we go. Time and tide wait for no person.
Hey, we're at 4:01 now, Tim.
Yeah, I should have known. We had a countdown.
Mike is hot. Cameras are up. We're ready to go here now.
He's not talking about the fact that some guy named Mike is hot. It's this microphone.
Yes, this one right here.
It's live.
We're talking about, as you mentioned right before we went live, a convergence zone of two jet streams pulling in a lot of moisture, one kind of out of the eastern Pacific up into the western Gulf, and another wave of energy bringing rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow to a large portion of the southern plains and the Midwest here throughout the morning and now into the afternoon, Tim.
So before we pop off of that, for those who weren't with us yesterday, I love the fact that Ross sort of circled the subtropical jet stream was going to come up and as he says, converge with that polar jet stream. What I still sort of the little Timmy Deegan part that has fun with this, Ross, is I'm thinking last Tuesday, so 7 to 8 days prior to tomorrow, to get this right, although we see it all coming together now, what that really meant was or at least the data and the computer models needed to have a good handle on what was happening west of Central America, the subtropical jet stream, right? And then as far as that polar jet stream, what was probably south of the Aleutians, So truly a hemispheric forecast this time of the year.
Thousands and thousands of miles away.
I mean, I'm sounding like trying to negotiate for more money for our salaries, but it's still as fascinating to me that at least the forecast is getting better to where, let's face it, about 7 days ago, there was pretty good confidence, not only that we'd have rain, but that we would see a pretty massive winter-type storm that has expanded and exploded pretty much over the last 24 hours. So you're talking about some of your friends back in Oklahoma City had quite the mess this morning, right?
Yeah, they had very icy roads, a lot of freezing rain. And then on the backside of this system, air temperatures are in the teens, but you get some very strong winds blowing, southward through the plains. So because of that sub-zero wind chills, feeling like 0 to -5, even -10 degrees in some parts of northwestern Oklahoma. So frigid conditions there, a solid ice pack, and we have a winter storm watches and warnings stretching all the way from western Oklahoma and Kansas, all the way through the Mississippi River Valley, through eastern Tennessee and Kentucky, and the whole way over to the Atlantic coast there in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina, even South Carolina getting in on that. So a very impactful winter storm event for a lot of those folks. We're going to be on the southern tier.
I'm sorry, Russ. I'm trying to think, just for those that might be traveling, like from now through tomorrow, the cities that might be hardest hit. So either heavy, wet snow or the whole mix, right? And I'm thinking of northern Arkansas and then Memphis to Nashville.
Louisville, perhaps.
Louisville.
And then, you're kind of getting up into the Charlotte, Raleigh, Asheville, Blacksburg, Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia, Richmond even would kind of be
and then even
swath there.
Yeah, and then even to Norfolk. I was looking at some of their local forecasts. They're going for 6 to 10 inches and maybe more in local areas.
That's a lot of snow for folks down there in Virginia. And
especially as
Virginia.
we sort of finish up February. Before we get too much into the future, I again am reminded of just the challenge of forecasting here. So at 6 o'clock this morning, if someone were to ask us how cold is it, it'd be a tough one-word answer, because at 6 o'clock this morning at NAS Jack, so in Orange Park, it was 50 degrees, and 9 miles west of there at Cecil Field, it was 32. So that's about, 2 degrees a mile?
Yeah. It's big changes.
Amazing.
A large variety of temperatures out there, Tim.
So once again, I'm just saying we deserve, a lot of credit.
Well, here is a look a little bit closer to home for us. Some of that moisture and showers just kind of making their way across southern Louisiana towards the bayou there near New Orleans. This will all be headed our way near sunrise tomorrow morning. So here's kind of what the system is looking to do. Low pressure system kind of dropping off to the south and southeast. That will eventually reach into the Gulf. Will slide our way throughout the day tomorrow, bringing us quite a large swath of widespread steady rainfall throughout much of the day tomorrow. Kind of a secondary low pressure system begins to spin up towards South Carolina.
Boom,
North
I'm
Carolina.
glad you mentioned that.
As this whole thing kind of moves southward, the low pressure system that we're going to see impact us in Florida kind of gets taken by the subtropical jet, and a secondary low kind of gets taken up to the north and northeast by the polar jet, kind of taking the winter weather towards them and just kind of the cool, steady rain for us, Tim.
Yeah, and so keeps any threat of too much heat and therefore possibly some strong thunderstorms. I was just going to mention, I'm glad you mentioned that secondary low, because the computer models used to do a terrible job with that. We'd see this energy coming at us from the west and low pressure, and the models would not handle at all that low developing in the Gulf Stream, and so then the models would consistently bring it up west of us, get us in the warm air. So not only would we blow the temperature forecast, we blow the thunderstorm forecast. And the tough thing is, as you know, Ross, but just to share with anybody out there listening to us, is that you couldn't guarantee, though, that all the time the computer models were wrong. And because sometimes we'd say, well, we think that low is going to develop over the Gulf Stream east of us. It's going to keep us, give us a north wind, going to create an inversion. Maybe we'll get some thunderstorms down south. And daggum, if that wouldn't be the time that nothing develops over the Gulf Stream, low, heads northeast out of Apalachicola to Savannah, and suddenly we have thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to see that consistency that I think we almost take for granted now, but used to not be that way at all. So here it is, the weather impact alert day. And again, folks, just as a reminder, it doesn't mean when we say weather impact alert, you see those dramatic red colors, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be a dangerous day. Although certainly for the folks rushing around during the morning or even during the evening with those slick roads, it can get dangerous out there. But at the very least, if you have to get outdoor work done and you can't do it with precipitation or play for that matter, then if you didn't do it today, then you should probably put it off till Thursday, because there's going to be some pretty steady rain. I'd say, Ross, if you're thinking about a location where maybe you have the best chance of maybe getting 4 hours of dry weather in, probably if you're south of Duval versus north, right?
Yeah, I would say most areas south of I-10 for a general sense. But yeah, I would think kind of southern Clay, southern St. John's, down into Putnam and Flagler, I think you might have a little bit more dry time. You also have a slightly better chance for maybe just one or two isolated thunderstorms or rumbles of thunder, especially down in Putnam and Flagler County tomorrow afternoon, as the main wave of energy in that low moves over central Florida tomorrow. But as you said, Tim, it starts at 6 a.m. tomorrow. That's kind of when we're expecting the steadiest of the rain to begin to move in. That's going to impact the morning commute. And this will continue through much of the morning into the early afternoon. You can notice all across southeast Georgia and pretty much down through I-10, maybe a little bit further south of there. Some pretty steady, heavy rainfall moving in. And then kind of just some scattered showers throughout the remainder of the day. So I think it will lighten up at least a little bit by the time you get after lunchtime. But overall, it's still going to be a very soggy day. Still expect some rain to continue through the late afternoon and early evening. And here's what I was talking about. Once that low moves on shore down towards Putnam and Flagler County, might just see a few isolated rumbles of thunder down there.
That's when I like to use that word counterintuitively. Don't ask me how to spell it. But so it's one of those situations where actually, the more the sun shines, especially for those areas that Ross is talking about, down over Putnam and Flagler County, the more that the sun shines for a period tomorrow, it actually will make for a higher risk of thunderstorms, because that could heat the atmosphere up. You get some mixing going.
A little bit more unstable.
A little more unstable. So it's counterintuitive, kind of.
So yeah, here's just another kind of way to look at it here, Tim, right? So rain begins to move in just before sunrise tomorrow morning, continues through the afternoon, pretty much wraps up for the most part by dinner time. I think we could still see some light showers, kind of residual showers on the back side, but everything's still going to be wet. It's going to be damp. Temperature-wise, I'm thinking upper 50s, low 60s perhaps for Duval and the Jacksonville area. So in an overall sense, not going to be a day you really want to spend much time, if any at all, outside. Just going to kind of be cool, rainy, not too windy. Winds are going to be out of the north. So
So
at least that's a plus. It's not going to be a blowing rain, if there's a silver lining in any of this.
A blowing rain, yes. But so that folks down in beautiful Palatka and Crescent Beach and the Flagler Beach Pier, so that you know that we're thinking about you. You might actually see temperatures top 70, depending on how much sun you get and if you get any bit of a southerly wind. So Ross has up the forecast as far as rainfall is concerned.
And this is all just model data, but I do think this tells a fairly accurate story. I'm thinking generally anywhere from a half inch to the upper end would probably be around an inch and a half.
And as wet as January was, during that warm 3 weeks of February, we really didn't get much rain, right?
Yeah, we've only gotten like 0.4 of an inch, I think.
So except for those who have outdoor plans tomorrow, in many ways, this is pretty much what the doctor ordered. Needed rain. It'll soak right in. Helps us out so that we have less of a deficit getting into the wildfire season.
Exactly, yeah. So main story there is just the rain for tomorrow. Keep that in mind. Pack the umbrella, the rain boots, the rain jacket, whatever you need. I'm going to switch things up here a little bit, Tim, to kind of set us up for what we're going to talk about for the rest of the week. So these are our high temperatures for every single day here so far through February, specifically in Jacksonville. You notice on Valentine's Day last Friday, we were 1 degree below average, and then yesterday, our coldest day of the month here so far. Even with those numbers added in, our average high is 77.9 degrees for the month of February so far. That's about 10 degrees overall.
Amazing.
Above average.
Amazing.
Just how significant is that when you think about it statistically and historically in Jacksonville? Well, it is by far over a half degree, or exactly a half degree warmer than the second warmest start to February ever. So 2025, you're talking about the first 17 days of February, warmest start to February ever on the record books here in Jacksonville, Tim.
And you know, that would just be amazing by itself. But then the fact that happened after the type of January we had, in which we had that almost 3-week period of almost unending cold. I mean, what a transition. And it just shows, too, just the huge battleground that's been happening all winter long between these polar vortexes that want to drop pretty far to the south, and then the strong subtropical jet stream, and even the flow of air coming from the southern hemisphere into the northern hemisphere. And we're just at that position to where, gosh, a shift of those jet streams by a few hundred miles, and it's almost like we skipped a season.
Well, we're going to go back to that winter season. That's kind of why I brought it up. How warm we've been. One of those polar vortexes that you mentioned is going to be headed our way after the storm system and rainmaker moves on through tomorrow. So big drop in the polar jet there. Much colder air is going to be filtering down in here across the First Coast by Thursday, and especially Friday, our potentially coldest days of the entire month. So the cold air blows in right there. Highs on Thursday in the mid-50s, but really I think Friday is going to be the real shock to the system for everyone, Tim. When you're talking about waking up in the morning, maybe taking your dog for a walk, we're going to need to be bundled up.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, out there walking and running with the one you love. Wind chill factor is probably in the 20s. Now, I was thinking about your 10 degree average right above. That Friday, if we end up doing 32 to 52, so that would be 42. That would be about, 12 degrees below average.
At least,
I mean, what a shift. Wow.
Yeah, well, our average high now is supposed to be 70.
Oh, yeah, if you're just looking at high temperatures, right. Yeah, so that's a crazy shift.
Yeah, that would be, 18 degrees below average.
Yeah. So. And that's the day that the baseball classic.
Yes, we've got, now again, I don't have that graphic in here, but we've got Bama, we've got the Buckeyes. We don't like to talk about them. As a Penn Stater, I don't want to talk about them too much. We've also got Coastal Carolina and the NC State Wolfpack. I believe Heather Crawford's an alum from NC State too, so
they do play baseball.
Yeah, maybe she'll be repping them over at VyStar Ballpark on Friday. It's going to be cold to be swinging a bat and trying to hit a baseball out there.
And I'm thinking, if you're a fan sitting there, I'll say it again. I think it's a double hot dog game day.
Well, and it's not just that this weekend. I had mentioned this in our editorial meeting earlier. We've got the Jacksonville Baseball Classic, World of Nations is happening over at tailgating, the Tailgater
Which
Parking.
I highly recommend for families. Great family event.
Exactly, yes. And we also have the Seawalk Music Festival over at Jack's Beach. So a lot of outdoor activities happening this weekend. And I think for a lot of folks, it's definitely going to be on the chillier side, especially to what we've kind of become accustomed to over the past 2 weeks. We've gotten used to the, 75, 80, 85-degree weather. So
there were people who did not have coat and ties on at the beach, men and women, over those weekends.
Yeah.
But this is not going to be a bikini weekend.
Well, even me, taking my dog for a walk in the morning and then I go to the gym, I've become so accustomed to just rocking the shorts and my tank top or whatever, my t-shirt that I'm going out in, that I'm like, okay, gotta toss a jacket on or a sweatshirt. And I haven't gotten to the point that I'm gonna put like sweatpants on to stay warm.
Yeah.
But yeah, by Friday morning, I might have to give in. I think the freezing point might be my cutoff for, okay, we're ditching the shorts. Gonna have to go with the long pants.
Or
maybe at least take the dog for a walk.
Maybe pick up your running pace.
This is true. Get the blood flow going on.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
Tim called me out. I'm going too slow out there.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. That was mainly a reminder for myself that if I'd pick it up, I'd warm up. Now, speaking of a warm up, at least we'll get back to seasonable situation as we get into Monday and Tuesday.
Yes, it does look like we're going to rebound rather quickly after the weekend. Temperatures back close to average, if not above there. Just last point I want to make, over the weekend, we might see a few sprinkles there, especially on Sunday. Maybe a little bit more clouds than sunshine.
Yeah.
But if you do have outdoor plans, I don't think the rain should stop you from getting out there. I think it should be pretty minimal for the most part. Wouldn't you agree?
No, totally agree. That, I guess another way to put it would be if you're out there with family and friends and they're looking at you and the sprinkles begin, don't think it's going to get worse. I mean, I think that's all we're going to see. So maybe not as pretty as we would like, but that certainly nothing like what's going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly, yeah. So weather impact alert in effect for tomorrow. Big cool down on the way then for your Thursday and Friday. We'll try to keep you dry as much as possible tomorrow and keep you warm for the end of the week. He is Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan. I am Meteorologist Ross Mumaw. Appreciate you watching. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.